Hey, what's up guys? So let's take a look at some of the coolest stuff that I found last week at CES. Now CES, or the Consumer Electronics Show, has a huge variety of different futuristic tech. And in fact, it was much more peaceful and calm than SEMA because we didn't have all of the audio companies like blasting music, making it hard to hear or do interviews or talk like this. However, there was a huge variety of cool stuff to check out. Now, in terms of radar detectors, there actually wasn't a single radar detector company present. In terms of dash cams, there were fewer companies here than at SEMA, but we did have a number of companies that we hadn't seen a couple months before. For example, DDPi was there, and they were showing off their Z90 Master and Z60 Pro. These are 3-channel dash cams with Starvis 2 sensors. They also had a new prototype of a 360 cam, and it's designed to integrate with the main cam to capture license plates, while the 360 cam gives you a better overall view of what's going on off to the sides or inside the car. Plus, they had some ideas for AI that might actually be useful. In fact, AI was probably one of the biggest themes of the show, no surprise there, and so I'm definitely going to come back to that here in just a moment. Then CarMate was there with some of their usual assortment of 360 cams as well. Nextbase was there with all the same stuff that we've seen before. BlackVue is at CES, though with a smaller booth than we saw at SEMA, and they had their Elite 9 and the new Elite 10 on display. And they mentioned how with the improved cooling, it's going to be less likely to overheat compared to its predecessors, and they're also improving the reliability of the Dashcam too. And speaking of thermal stuff, remember how Vantrue had their new thermal cam, the Pilot 2 or P2, back at SEMA? Well, at CES, they were showing off a new prototype for a motorcycle version of their thermal cam, and this is going to be called the F2. Now, the main cameras record in 4K and 2K, and then it also adds a third thermal cam here as well. It also has a dedicated display for things like watching the dashcam footage or showing your speedometer while you're on the bike, or including CarPlay support. And then for installation, it now includes a new clamp mount. As a bonus, a number of fellow YouTubers and we all sat down with Vantrue, just like we've done with other companies, to go over their product line, learn more about their products, and provide some feedback and suggestions. And I hope that for their sake, they take the time to implement a lot of these suggestions because it would definitely make their dash cams much more competitive. Additionally, they're also developing a new dashcam battery pack. And what's interesting about this is it's now going to be 10,000 milliamp hours, up from 7,500 like most other dashcam battery packs, which is going to give us an additional 33% in capacity. On top of that, price-wise, it's going to be surprisingly inexpensive, coming in somewhere around half the price of other battery packs too. It's not going to have Bluetooth, so it's similar to the 70mAh battery pack, but it's going to be cheaper than even that battery, and it's going to have larger capacity too. And personally, I love seeing this trend. I think dashcam battery packs are pretty expensive, and I love the fact that we're now starting to get some more affordable options. Similarly, there's also a new affordable battery coming out from Red Tiger. And what's unique about this one is there's actually a slot for a SIM card. And so this battery pack is going to give you not only the parking mode recording, but also LTE connectivity without having to have like a separate LTE module connected to the dashcam. Now, size-wise, it does look pretty tall and bulky. It's kind of like two Mac Minis stacked on top of each other, and I could see this being an issue for installation if you want to maybe like tuck it under a car seat or something, but it's the first time that I've seen a battery pack that has LTE connectivity built in. Then Pelsee was there with their P12 Pro Max. It's a 4K Starvis 2 rearview mirror style dashcam. And I took a closer look at this, including its parking mode capabilities, and it seems to work pretty poorly, just like I've seen with most other rearview mirror style dashcams. We also had quite a few issues with the fact that there's a lot of fake 4K dashcams, and they really did not want me shooting videos about that. But we talked about that quite a bit, and eventually I was able to share about it, and I've got some more information to share about that once we get to the full Pelsee video. And speaking of rearview mirror dash cams, Nexico had a booth there as well, though they didn't have any dash cams on display. At most, they just had a banner showing some of their different products. Then Vox was there too, showing off a rearview mirror dash cam, and what was special about this one is the front camera was actually a separate camera and not built into the rearview mirror itself, and so there's going to be more placement options as far as where you put that front camera. SJCam was present. I used to have one of their knockoff GoPros, and they were there showing off their M60. It's yet another Starvis 2 dashcam, but it seemed kind of meh. Insta360 was there as well, so I took a closer look at their X5, and I really wanted to see, as far as the settings, what it would take to turn it into a proper dash cam. So I've got a whole video coming out just on that, kind of going over how you would configure it and how it would compare to a dedicated traditional dash cam. Next, we've got eFanTech, who's actually a factory, and they make white label dash cams that a lot of other manufacturers can put their names on. And as usual, they had a bunch of dash cams on display. And they also manufacture a lot of those dust blowers that you see from companies like Vantrue or Wolfbox, etc. Lingdu and Azidome were there with the bunch of Dashcams, most of which were also fake 4K models, though they did have one that had Apple Find My built in, so it's kind of like having an AirTag built into the Dashcam to make it easier to find your car when you're parked. And then also memory cards were a big topic of discussion too. You see, due to AI needs, the demand for memory has been going up considerably, and so a lot of companies now are getting short on parts and their prices are going up. And they're saying that they're expecting the prices of memory cards to go up by about 3 times. So heads up about that. Then in terms of cars, there were actually a lot of really cool cars at the show. For example, they had the Bugatti Tourbillon on display, which looks beautiful in person. Additionally, right next to it, they also had some Bugatti scooters on display in case you'd like to say that you own a Bugatti. I found a Lamborghini Revuelto on display, but probably one of my favorites was actually a McLaren F1 car. And this was prominently displayed here at the show, and it was so cool to see in person. In fact, it was bigger than I expected, especially front to rear. The tires were also big too, nearly the size of my whole arm. But as I started looking at the car more closely, I started to notice some weird things. For example, with the rear wing, it's actually missing DRS altogether. Next, when you take a look at the air intake behind the driver's head, it actually looks totally fake. Furthermore, on one side of the car, it's got Oscar Piastri's name, and on the other side of the car, it displays Lando Norris's name. I also noticed that the front wing was missing the quick release for when the wing has to be replaced after damage. Then the medium tires they had bolted on didn't have the usual slick pattern that I would expect for both new or used tires. And talking with one of the people there, they said this was actually just a replica. It's just a show car. In fact, this car didn't even have an engine installed, which is kind of disappointing because the guy was like, I would love to go drive this car. And I was like, man, if you could drive it, I would totally help you get it up and running, even though it takes like hours to start. Either way, though, it was awesome to see in person and really soak in all the details. Then in terms of futuristic ideas, LG was demonstrating a windshield with augmented reality. Additionally, to select the music you wanted to listen to, you could just use your eyes instead of your hands. And then if your car has full self-driving, they had a demo of driving into a tunnel where it would basically replace the reality you're seeing with something more interesting. Though of course when you do this, you're now completely disconnected from the world around you. And speaking of futuristic vehicles, they also had a number of flying vehicles on display too. And a lot of these were like personal transport helicopters. And over the years, I've seen a variety of different versions like this here at these different shows. There were also some larger variants which could be used as something like a flying Uber. And so some of these were designed for personal usage while others would be more commercial. Now, as far as AI though, this was probably one of the biggest themes of the show, and it was everywhere. Like almost everything had some version of AI. However, very rarely was the implementation that they were sharing and the use case actually useful. And for that reason, by the end of the show, I wound up kind of tuning out most of all the AI talk because it actually wasn't all that helpful. For example, I found some massage chairs that had AI, and when I asked them what the benefit of AI was, they said that, well, you could talk to the chair and it can massage you based on what you want, but I was like, why not just use the remote to say, like, massage my legs or my arms or more intense or something? And so that can be maybe more convenient, but not necessarily revolutionary. There was also a washer and dryer with AI, which could recognize the clothes that you put in it and automatically choose the appropriate wash cycle to avoid damaging your fabrics. And then Ugreen had a NAS with AI, basically like a big box of hard drives to store your files. And in the NAS, you can upload maybe your documents or your photos, and it can help you search and organize all of your different files. And one of my favorite things was it can kind of replace the idea of Google Photos or Apple iCloud for all your photo storage, because now you can store everything locally and then use AI to identify all the different images or search for different things or locations or people within all of your different photos. Plus, the LLM is actually going to run locally, so it's never going to be connecting out to the internet to share your personal files. The only thing that it would use internet connectivity for is something like maybe if you wanted to search for photos in a certain location, then it could actually maybe reference Google Maps to give you the mapping information. But otherwise, all of the searching and LLM functionality would be done locally directly on the NAS. Now, this wouldn't work very well for videos though, because video requires a lot more horsepower, and so for that reason, they actually had the option to connect an external GPU if you wanted to add even more horsepower to the AI capabilities. Now, price-wise, this would bump the price of the NAS from like around $500 to over $2,500, though on Kickstarter they're going to be selling it for around $1,000 off. But either way, that's definitely a noticeable price bump to add the AI capabilities. There were also a number of 3D holograms to display objects or even people, such as AI avatars, and this could effectively give us a more physical version of something like ChatGPT. And on a related note, another big thing I saw at the show was there were a ton of robots, and I really enjoyed actually checking out the different versions. Some of the robots were actually on display dancing to show off their physical capabilities, and then others, in a what could possibly go wrong moment, were actually being taught martial arts and were demonstrating karate on the floor. Others were taught to do kung fu. And so hopefully they're being taught to be nice to people as well, especially if robots wind up one day taking over the world. Some of the robots were being taught how to blow kisses or make hearts or something. There were also some little doggy robots that were being taught to act friendly or even have little hearts for their eyes or stuff. But again, there's always the concern in the back of everybody's mind of like, who knows how they will behave once robots start to become more sentient. Anyways, they also had some robots that could play ping pong with people. There were some robotic arms that were being built to help brew coffee for people. There were some designed to help move your laundry from your washer over to your dryer. There was also one that could be used to help fold your laundry, which I think is a really cool idea. This is what I'd like to see AI and robotics being used for. But the version they had wasn't actually very effective. It often struggled to even grab the laundry to fold in the first place. So it's very much still in development, but I think in practice this isn't really a huge deal because, well, this is the kind of thing that can just run in the background. So even if it takes longer than a human would do, it's very convenient to have a robot doing this here for you. And I kind of think of it as like having a dishwasher, for example, where maybe, sure, you can wash the dishes by hand, but you can also just throw your dishes in the dishwasher and it'll clean everything for you overnight. So you wake up and everything is clean and ready. Then as far as robotic vacuums, there's more options now that have arms on top that could add things like brushes, for example, or even put the brushes back in the base to help clean them or swap out the brushes. They had some now that can start going up and down little stairs. They had some bigger robot vacuums that are designed to pick up larger items such as cans or water bottles. Some of the robots could drive around your yard to help mow the lawn. There were also some that had extendable solar panels to charge themselves up and then drive up to you and provide electricity. Though I spent about 10 to 15 minutes talking with the PM of the project and I really struggled to find a good use case for when this would be necessary and actually really all that helpful. There was also a robot that could drive around your garage and plug your car charger into your EV. It would cost about $2,000, so I guess it's up to you as to whether or not that's worth it. But either way, I think it was really cool to see people playing around with a lot of different ideas, and I'm really curious to see what's going to ultimately stick in the end. In terms of TVs, of course, there were a ton of huge TVs. There were displays with a bunch of thin TVs floating overhead. There were a lot of augmented reality glasses, which you could use for things like turn-by-turn navigation or real-time language translation. Then you had iAudi, who makes a lot of car phone mounts, many of which I've actually used over the years. And they've got some new ones that are using Qi 2.2, which is basically a faster standard for wireless charging. So instead of charging at 7.5 watts or 12 or 15 or something, it can now go up to 25 watts of charge speed. Similarly, Aki had some phone mounts here as well, and some of the ones that they had actually had coolers built into the mounts with little fans. So if you're driving around in the car, for example, and your phone would overheat, their new upcoming mounts can help to keep your phone cool. There's lots of different home security cameras that I checked out. There were a lot of companies with different battery packs, some of which you could use to power your entire house in case of a power outage or something. There's also a new Bitcoin miner that I found, which is really cool. The idea with this one is it would actually integrate with your water heater to help heat up the water for your showers. And then the Bitcoin that you would mine, you could sell the Bitcoin to help offset all of the costs for your water heater. Plus, as a bonus, this could also help to decentralize Bitcoin mining as well. And so all throughout the show, there was a huge variety of different things to see on a wide variety of topics. And in some of my upcoming videos now, I want to go into more detail about some of the most interesting things, especially the different dash cams, for example, or some of these cool phone mounts, to share more detail as far as what people are working on, some of the tech specs, and new feature designs and implementations. So definitely stay tuned for more videos coming out here next. As far as CES, I keep wanting to say SEMA, but CES, now that we're done with like this higher level overview of a lot of the cool stuff on display at the show. And with that said, thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.